Well, do you have a pile of these that you don't know what to do with? I'm showing a handful of cables that are assorted different sizes and types. Or maybe you have sorted collections of these. And now I'm showing ziplock bags filled and labeled. In either case, you're going to enjoy and maybe laugh or cry even a little with this episode when I talk to you about the cables and connectors for mobile devices. Stay tuned. Well, this is Tech Tips for Seniors, a show with tips for seniors, or anyone really, on how to better use technology such as smartphones and computers in your daily lives. And I'm your host, Bruce Ciotta. So in our house, we struggle with cables and connectors for our devices, and the struggle's real. Here's how you know if this is you. You have a drawer full, or maybe even drawers full of cables for every kind of cable imaginable. And you've tried to organize your mess. And now you have instead collections of bags or zip ties, travel pouches, or zippered bags that are just filled with cables. And you've spent more time than you want to mention or admit buying this or that new connector you need to have at just the right length to serve your special device or needs for a time. And still, you get to some destinations, and I know I have, and you don't have the one thing you need right now. Well, you're not alone. So I wanted to take some time to talk about the current options for cables and connectors, including some industry trends for the future, and how to pick the right set of cables for your needs. So the current connector options that are out there are USB flavors. Like there's a number of them that are called USB. And so first of all, for those of you that are listening on the audio version and you really need some remedial help in this area, you may want to tune in to the YouTube version just to catch some of the visuals. What I'm showing here is a USB mini or micro connector. And these connectors are the smallest type of USB, and they were used for a lot of non-Apple devices. I'm going to hold it up real close to the camera so you can get a good look at it. It's rectangular, but it has a little bit of a V shape that is in there, and it's small. And so non-Apple devices used a lot of these, but it's older now, and it's now been replaced or is being replaced with newer types of connectors in a lot of applications. Now the second type, and this is probably the most common connector, let me see if I can find one of these in my tangled mess, is the USB Type A connector. And this is the standard connector that you're going to find in a lot of places in where you can do charging. You'll see this one most commonly used. This has been around for a really long time. It's rectangular in shape, and it only goes in one direction. If you try to push it in, you'll see you have to flip it over to the other side in order to get it to go into the slot. This is called a USB Type A connector. And now I'm going to show something of a newer connector called USB-C. And USB-C is a reversible connector that is that's given now has high-speed data transfer. So it's really useful for data, getting it crossed very quickly. It also has quicker charging in it, and it can carry video signals. So this is the coming and new standard for USB-C. And you're going to see a lot of new and more modern devices containing this type of connector, including laptops, smartphones, and many accessories. There is also a move now in the government bodies to standardize devices with this type of connector. The EU has recently mandated that Apple convert to USB-C, so you'll see that on their smartphones. Now, another type of connector, and nothing related to USB, because USB is an industry standard, you have something called a lightning cable. And a lightning cable is the invention from Apple, and it was created to make them sort of unique. And it goes on the smaller Apple devices like iPhones and iPads, and AirPods have this in prior versions. But these connectors are going away in favor of the new USB-C connector that I just showed you. That's a bidirectional connector, and it works on all different devices. That's as of 2023 and 24. The EU mandate has supplanted the Lightning connector with the USB-C. Now, there are a few other options for cable connectors that are less common, and you may see them when you're trying to connect a printer, for example. But the above that I just mentioned are the main ones that are out there. Now, on top of that, you also have cable options, and this is where it starts to get complicated, because you'll see a cable that has basically, it's the wire between the two connectors. For those of you who really need the remedial version, this is the connection that works between the connectors. So like a length of wire, or it's covered with a plastic or some kind of rubbery substance perhaps. And this gets pretty complicated quickly, because you'll have many different lengths that you can choose from. You might want one that reaches from your bed, for example, to the table nearby or something like that. So you'll need a certain length of option. But then you'll also find that at either end of that cable, they have two different connectors, and they're usually the genders of the types that I just mentioned earlier. But it could be that you have, and get ready because this gets sounding pretty weird after a while, USB-C to Lightning connector, or you may have USB-A to a mini or a micro connector, and so forth. So you're going to have a whole pile of different cables that are necessary in order to do what you might want to do. And you need the right connector at either end of the cable in order for it to do the job. And then you also have to make sure that it's long enough for what you want to do. So now, essentially, there are going to be 3 or 4 main options that I mentioned above, and that you would be talking about when you talk about getting a cable, the right cable for what you need. Now, if you haven't had things complicated enough to make things even further complicated, you'll need the connector that goes into the wall outlet. And so if you have to charge the device, you'll need a plug. And that plug is what goes into one of the ends of your cable. And that plug is what you'll plug into the wall. Now, that's not always necessary, because you may not charge your device in the wall at all. A few examples of that is if you're on an airplane or at a gate area, and there might be a place to charge your device that's under the seat, and it may not require a wall plug. It may just have one of the common USB type of ends on it, and you just have to plug your cable into there and the other end into your device, and you can charge. Or you may find some wall outlets, and these are starting to come out to be more common in hotels or even in homes. And you see that they have a little connector place where you can plug your USB device directly in. Don't plug it into where the outlet goes. The AC is there, but you'll see a little connector on the side, perhaps between the two different plugs. I'll show a picture here so you can see what that looks like. And that will be able to charge your device without a wall plug. Also, you may be able to plug your device directly into your laptop, and that's quite common. If you have a MacBook or whatever, you won't need the wall plug to charge. You can just connect the cable with the right type of connector. So, in summary, if you always have to be thinking about the two ends of the cable and how long the cable has to be, and then you have to decide how you're going to charge it. Now, if you're charging your computer, that's another ball of wax. The MacBook or other personal computers require more power in order to charge. And so in order to do that, they have a bigger connector built into the cable that manages their power needs. So it might be used with one of the type of connectors that I talked about into the side of your computer, but it will always need that bigger block in order to do the charging. Okay, one more type of charging that I want to talk about, and that is, and I know I've got it here somewhere, charging your Apple Watch. And this, if you have an Apple Watch, you probably already know this, but you'll need something of a magnetic connector that clips onto the watch with magnet, and it will pop onto the back of the watch, and then you charge the other end by plugging the wall plug end, whatever your cable has. This one has a USB-A type of connector, the standard connector, and you plug that end into the charging, and your watch will charge. Now, all of that about charging, there's in general a better option for charging, and that has no need for cables whatsoever. And it's pretty ubiquitous in newer devices, and it's called wireless charging. And so you set the device, whether it's a smartphone or AirPods or your watch, on some, and some tablets actually do this, on some kind of a charging pad. And the device charges without a cable. Now, the nicer ones and the newer ones have another magnetic type of connection so that the device stays centered where it needs to be in order to get that charge from the device. But you'll have to have, if you have a phone, you'll have to have a compatible case that works through with the charging. And so there's also cases that have magnets built into them or just allow the magnetic to pass through safely. But the technology has magnet built right into it so that the device is positioned on the charger properly and doesn't get bumped off by accident and stop charging. So I know that's a lot of technology to talk about. This is Tech Tips for Seniors, and I went through it kind of quickly. But let's start by solving the whole problem of like, what do I do? How do I get this thing resolved? What do I need for the right cable? So here's a list of steps. Line up your devices. Take all the devices that you have. Like I have a phone and I have a watch, an Apple Watch, and I also have a laptop computer, and I also have a tablet. Well, you line all those devices up in a row, and you look at the connectors on each one. Then you want to make sure that you have at least one cable for each type of connector that you need. Note, however, that if you charge all your devices at one time, you're going to need a separate cable for each of the devices. If you wanted to say, charge your devices, I like to do this if I get to a hotel. I want to charge all my devices at nighttime so that I'm ready to go in the morning. I'll need enough connectors to work all those devices at one time. And then think about the wall or charging side of each cable. So you may need multiple wall plugs. And then my step 4 is to simplify if possible. So if you have multiple devices, all this gets pretty unwieldy. You have lots and lots of cables and a lot of them very quickly. So here's a few suggestions. Look for a multi-charging device. And so think about purchasing a device that can charge several devices at a time. And I have one that takes actually I have two of these that I could use. One holds the phone, another one holds the AirPods, and then another one will hold the watch. So there's different places on that. There's one thing to note about a multi-charging device that might be useful to you, and that is that if you put more than one device on at the time, then you're also going to split the amount of power that's charging those devices so that they take longer to charge. It's going to divide the power across all the devices that you put on that multi-charger. But if you're putting it on at nighttime when you go to sleep, you don't really care whether it takes 1 hour or 7 hours to charge. It's going to get all those devices charged up by the morning. Another option, if you want to simplify, is to go for that magnetic wireless charging option if it's available. It really makes it easier, and a lot of newer devices are coming out with that, so it might be time for you to get an upgrade or consider, if your device may already have that, looking at getting a charger that goes with it. And one other thing to note, if you want to simplify, is to look at purchasing an extension cord or a box that combines multiple needs into one. So here's a box that works with USB and AC. It's got a power cord that connects up to it, and it allows you to charge a lot of devices. This is really helpful because if your cables are all short, then you'll have an extension to get to the wall outlet somewhere else in the room. And then that kind of device runs less than $20. So another way to do it is through a box. I'll show a picture of that. Also, if you do international travel, it can be extremely helpful to have the right kind of plug to go into the wall for wherever you are. And one little box has multiple plugs built into it and also can accommodate the USB and AC plugs that you have. So I'll show a picture of what that looks like so you can keep it close to your bed while you're traveling. So let's get organized. I'm going to talk about cases next. Okay, on to cases, but before I do, I wanted to show that nice little box that I have purchased, which works for international travel and has the various different countries that you might use there for the EU, the US, UK, and Australia, all on here. They slide out really easily to show the connectors and then pop back in. And then finally over on this side, you can see that there's room for multiple USB types of connectors on this end. So this is really handy. Again, less than $20. Okay, on to cases. I'm an organizer freak, so I tend to like to have things put away in zippered bags when I travel. So here's a little example of a case that you can throw into your backpack, and it's handy. You can find this one is by a company called Bag Smart, but there's a lot to choose from, and I don't have any sponsorship with anybody, but it does have a nice zipper connection here that you can close up and opens up to allow you to put your cables into the little pouches that exist. One other device that I found helpful when I am on long trips is a charging block. And this one is one that has cables of all different types connected onto the side of it, so you can pull them out and you can charge all different devices. Even has a lightning cable, USB A and C type of connectors. And then you charge this block and you get it all ready to go. And then if you're on an extended flight or driving for a long distance and you don't have any place to charge, you can connect your device to one of those cables, and it will recharge your device slowly, but it does recharge it and gets your power back on if you're down to zero. So that's a handy little case that I have found helpful for my backpack. And then when I'm throwing something into my suitcase, I will throw a bag like this into the suitcase. This is a larger bag, happens to be bag smart also, but there's plenty of choices. And there again, a larger size allows you to accommodate some of the bigger cables that you have, maybe even throw your computer cable in there as well. And I can slide this block into that bag. Well, that's it. Thanks for joining me today on Tech Tips for Seniors. I hope you found today's tech tip helpful. If so, let me know by leaving a comment in the comments section for this episode, and like, subscribe, and pass this on to a friend who can get something out of it. It would also be helpful if you left us a review. So if you've done that already, thank you very much. Remember, stay tuned to the next episode of Tech Tips for Seniors. Take care.